Comics Coast to Coast is brought to you by patrons like you. If you'd like to help the show out, head on over to patreon.com/comicsc2c and show us a little bit of your love. Your sweet, sweet love. I mean, like $1 worth of love. And we'll take that love and hug it and squeeze it and make it do podcast things that you'll enjoy. So come on, see what happens.
This is Comics Coast to Coast.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Dunaway, and you're listening to Comics Coast to Coast, episode 322, The Fan Art, with special guest Phil Rood. Before we talk to Phil, let's bring on regular guest, regular co-host, Joel Duggan.
Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you? ForgePublishing.com. How are you, sir?
Good. ForgePublishing.com is good. I am good. JoelDuggan.com is good. Everything is good. It's all fine here.
Need a shirt that says it's good. It's good. Oh, by the way, I'm wearing my Dropbox shirt today. You can't see it. You can see it on the feed if you're watching live or looking on YouTube. By the way, we're still doing the twitch.tv/Brian Dunaway. We're broadcasting live on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in. Get to the chat room. Tondagosa's already there. He's having a good time. I think he is.
I'm wearing my red shirt, so no, I will not beam down to the surface.
We'll see. We'll see. And that chuckling there is our own Matthew Ducharme, Matt the Wad. Matt,
oh, it is indeed.
You doing good?
I'm doing way better than Joel.
Oh,
see, there you
go. Where's your shirt? Okay. Matt brought up a great topic for this week's Comics Coast to Coast. We're gonna make him explain it here right after I introduce returning guest, sorta, Phil Rood. Phil, how are you,
From
man?
The Phantom Zone, here I come. Have I been here? I don't know. Which dimension? Which Earth am I on?
Right. Okay. So the story behind this is I've done podcasts with Phil Rood before, and I thought he had been on Comics Coast to Coast proper, but we haven't done it. If you want to see Phil's work, he is at philrood.com. That's PHILROOD.com. Check out his artwork. It's great. I've been, I wouldn't say in competition, but I've enjoyed the friendly competition of the art projects that Hammond does. What do we call that thing again? It's the art.
It's the
Artist
he does the
Roundtable.
Artist Roundtable every year.
Artist Roundtable. Yeah. And I'm not doing it this year, but Phil, you're still doing it this year.
I've done it every year.
Oh man, you're a beast.
Since he started. So yeah, I love it. It's like my Christmas that we get to go on there and just talk shop with other artists and get to see everybody, get to see like a wider scope of everybody's work.
Right.
I remember Matt blowing me away because all I had ever seen was the YouTube animations, and I had no idea he was a digital painter as well. Like, it was just really cool to see what everybody can do. I love doing that show every year.
Yeah. Wow,
Matt's a whole lot of fun. The thing I liked about it is it just reminded me of my, art college days. It's so much fun to see how other people will interpret the same subject. It's like, look at that cool thing. I never would have thought of that angle. It's like you get a little swim in the creativity pool,
Yeah. It really is. Hammond always, he makes it challenging, man. He sends out, he usually has 4 or 5 artists, and he sends out a couple of months prior. By the way, Hammond's great organizer. He'll send it out a couple months prior and start bugging the crap out of you. Have you done your artwork yet? How's it going? Do your artwork. But he sends out these subjects for to draw on. It's usually, I think in the past it's been like 4 or so, somewhere in that range.
I think we got four this year. Yeah.
Right, and he gives you just enough freedom to hang yourself because you think, I'm just gonna do it. It's like, I'm just gonna do a little thing. I've got months. It's gonna be no big deal. And then the deadline gets really close all of a sudden. You're like, oh crap, I got to get on it. And but
yeah,
it's
you
always a lot of fun.
you start to see Hammond's emails get more and more frantic as the deadline comes. Hey guys, I'm still waiting on it. You know, like it gets a little more harried every week. So about another month, I think those will start. The reminders will start coming and pick up steam like a snowball.
I like it, and he also does is he's not. I wouldn't say by trade an artist, but he always throws his hat in the ring as well, and it's always entertaining to see.
Yeah, he'll get down in the dirt with you, or down in the ink with you, and he'll throw his own artwork up there. So it's cool.
It's always impressive. Now, Phil, I'm on your website right now, and I'm looking at your electric guitar horseman. He is fantastic. I can't draw horses, so I'm in awe right now.
Horses are one of those things. Like, I'm finally getting to a point where I can get a halfway decent horse put together, but I still, every time I have to draw a car, right. Speaking of hanging yourself, I'm just sitting there going, why did I give myself a car to draw? This is the worst thing I could ever do to myself.
Why did I decide to draw a car in space?
Yes.
Am I insane? Lost my mind.
It's one of those things where you go, this will look really cool if I can pull it off, and then actually trying to pull it off is what drives you insane.
Right. So I'm looking at your artwork on your website, and I see you got a lot of inks, and I'm looking at Zen Cats is absolutely free. What that?
Yes, sir.
What's that? I don't feel. I don't know what is this free? Why is it free? How do I get this free?
It is a PDF download I threw together last summer. I think I finished it up, and it's just a little essay I wrote about cats and the Zen Buddhist nature of cats and how they just kind of do what they want to without any thought for anything else. And it's a little illustrated essay. It's about 8 pages, and it's click the button, and it is a free download.
I'm interested in this. I would have went with Cats Are Jerks, but
that's in there. That's totally a part of it. Yeah, so
I can totally
you
see
live with
that.
cats long enough, you just go, yeah, they're jerks, but I accept you, for being a jerk.
Man, I have not. I'm going to admit, sometimes I'm a poor friend, and after we did our art thing last year, I haven't been back to your site nearly enough, obviously, because I'm seeing some really cool stuff since then. I see this story called the Judas Ghost. The goat. Excuse me, I said ghost, but I meant the Judas Goat. What is this all about? This is interesting.
The Judas Goat.
Yeah.
The Judas Goat is I was writing a kind of series of short fiction, short illustrated short stories a year or two ago, and that was something. The Judas Goat was part of a larger series of stories that I just sort of, between time and I hate to keep beating this drum, between time and a hurricane hitting my house last year, I just sort of got away from that, but it was part of a story that I was writing that was a series of shorter stories about running into a weird kind of psychic goat on a road trip somewhere. But overall, the stories are just kind of odd little, I don't know, whatever little oddity I felt like writing about that week, and I would turn them around in a week or two, just with some quick illustrations, pen and ink, and a little bit of spot color, and it was a fun project. Kept me busy for a year or so.
Yeah, goats are also have great personalities. So I mean, these are a lot of fun. I love this goat's face though; it's killing me. If you're watching the video, you can see it. But all right, so you haven't beat it to death, Phil, because we heard it pre-show, and we kind of know a little bit about your background personally. About the hurricane, but our listeners don't know anything about the hurricane. So you are in the path of a hurricane, and you had you lost your office this past year, right?
I did. We had 2 trees fall on our roof after Hurricane Irma. I'm on the Gulf Coast of Florida.
Right.
And it came straight up through Florida and knocked 2 trees over into our roof. We are still waiting on a contractor to come out because everybody is far, far behind.
Oh, yeah.
And that actually happened over my youngest son's room. So he lost his room, which means he moved into my office, and I lost my office kind of by default. So
right.
We lost a little bit of house, and we're just sort of waiting on insurance companies and general contractors and all the good stuff that makes living in hurricane country worthwhile,
Yeah, I hear you. So do you ever go to your old office and just kind of look around? Just kind of,
I just kind of look around when all my records and books are still in there, and I'm just kind of like,
Right.
oh yeah.
Kick some Voltron toys over.
Yeah,
Get out of here. Stupid.
What are you doing in here? This
Right.
you can't put your stuff over here. This is where my stuff goes. Yeah, it turns into a big territorial thing.
I like in my alternate reality that your children play with Voltron still. Like, that's a thing for kids.
Yeah, well, actually, one of my sons did get into the new Voltron series on on Netflix. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
excellent.
And it was a little weird because he thought it was all brand new.
Matt,
new
did
to
you
him.
recommend the new Voltron?
No, I had only seen like the first 2 episodes, but I think it's from the same company that did all the Avatar ones, Avatar: The Last Airbender. So it's pretty quality stuff from what I saw.
Right. That's great. Yeah. What they like season 4 now or something? They're pretty well along.
There's at least 2.
Yeah. They're pretty well, at least 2. I watched most of the first season. I didn't finish it up. Something happened. That's always what happens on Netflix to me. It's like, I'm watching it, having a good time. Something happens.
Yeah.
So, but not Stranger Things. Nothing ever happens when I'm watching that. I put everything on pause. It's like, because I watch it like, it's like, no, Stranger Things is on. Go away. I got this. I watch them in 2 days. That's how I always do it. Binge those things. Where was I going with that? All right. So, yeah. So, see, all I can think about is Stranger Things now. Is there a new season yet? All right. So, okay. Back to Phil. Phil, Tondagosa in the Twitch room says, he says you do great animals, Phil, and I'm gonna agree. And he also thinks the new Voltron is great, and it's 3 seasons now, 4th starting soon. So I wasn't too far off. Excellent. All right. So that's a good refresher on who Phil is, what he does. Go check his work out at philrood.com, PHILRROD.com. Tune in hopefully not too many episodes, and we're going to have an interview proper and get what all you're doing with the projects, how you make that ink lines. Are you traditional? Are you digital? We want to know all that stuff. Don't tell us now, though. Save it for that show.
I'll save it. Yeah.
Save it for that show. What we're going to do is we're going to spend the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to discuss a topic which Matt bravely threw into the emails, and whenever one of us comes up with a topic, we make that person explain it to the listening audience. So Matt, you're up. You've been rewarded.
We modified it slightly from my original. My original idea was about the constant balance that all of us strike between trying to please the most people and trying to do something truly unique. But I think Joel boiled it nicely down to like, well, I guess you could make it about fan art. And
right.
So that's what we're talking about today.
That's right. Doing a little fan art talk. First let's ask this question. What classifies fan art? Because in my mind, when I think of fan art, the first thing I think of is conventions. Because I see so much fan art at conventions, it has totally changed my con going experience. It used to be you would hardly ever see any major IP kind of stuff drawn by other artists other than those IP holders. And it seems like over the years that's made a big shift where people are drawing fan art or their interpretations of copyrighted characters. That's just what I think my default fan art. What do you guys think when you hear fan art?
I would say it's anything that you're doing that is like art that is paying homage to a broader IP or a character or something that you are a fan of. A lot of times, I mean, like go back to like when you were 12 or 14, right? What were you drawing? For me, I was drawing Ninja Turtles because I was a big fan of Ninja Turtles and I knew how to draw them and they were fun to draw. So it was all fan art. It was, because I didn't really have a lot of original ideas, but it was just you wanted to draw the stuff that you were spending your time watching and consuming. I do some fun chibi fan art now, Spider-Man, some Marvel characters, stuff like that. I find it fun and a little bit challenging to take a character that's not meant to be a chibi and then kind of turn it into one. But traditionally, I've not, over my career, I've not done a lot of fan art.
Right.
And I always thought, like I wanted to do more original content. And when I first started, it was animation series. And now I was coming up with comic strip ideas and stuff like that. So I was always trying to come up with original characters as opposed to trying to draw other people's. But I think one of the reasons that you're seeing that shift in convention so much to a lot of fan art, and I've done this myself on purpose, is that it acts as a really good advertiser and gives you that commonality between the people that come up to your table. So if I put a bunch of chibi Marvel characters, Iron Fist and Spider-Man and Hawkeye and stuff up, the people that see Spider-Man come over to my table and I get to, they say, hey, I like your Spider-Man. I thank them. And then we get talking about stuff. And then I have an opportunity to tell them about who I am, what I do, and maybe point them towards some of my original content.
Right.
And I think that the popularity of just fan art on the internet has created that kind of like, that's what people are looking for in real life when they're at conventions.
Right.
So I've started doing it more and it works wonderfully.
Right. It really is. It's a great bridge between familiar to the not so familiar, because it's kind of intimidating learning, especially at a convention where you're trying to, consume and look at and digest different artists' work, because each artist, for the most part, has their own language and characters. And sometimes it's hard to get into that unless you have a familiar bridge to cross to kind of introduce you to that language to kind of start to understand what's going on. By the way, Deviant Art apparently thinks that fan art is mostly picture of ladies with big boobs, because I did
well, there's that too. Yeah.
Apparently there's a whole contingency about that. And there's Fairy Heavy Lucy. I've never heard of this, but oh my gosh, I don't know who. Fat Giantess Camilla apparently is a thing that these people are doing, drawing these really large fat versions of
stuff.
It's really kind of odd.
Yeah.
Okay, I've gotten into a weird.
I'm not ready. I haven't been on DeviantArt in a long time.
DeviantArt has really changed since I.
Oh, really?
I'm getting out of there. Yeah, I don't. I think it's. I don't hang out on DeviantArt a whole lot anymore, but it's always been fan art. But it just seems like every time I go back, it's a flash in the pan, trendy kind of thing that I don't know about. It's some kind of really quick hashtag sort of like stuff Brian's talking about. I've never heard of any of that, but it'll be the biggest thing. And then I'm just like, all right, back to Instagram I go, and it's just sort of like, that's kind of where I get all my art from now.
Yeah. Right. Do you surf around on ArtStation at all, Phil?
I have, but I don't, not like regularly. I've gone there a couple times when people have shared links or whatnot.
Because I find a real low frequency of fan art there. I find a lot of people are posting original stuff. There's still fan art, but people are not filling their galleries with it. Like the people that are into what's that new Blizzard game, Overwatch.
Overwatch.
It's not new, but it's been. But that is like fan art for that has kind of saturated into the channels that I follow art on. And you'll see the odd, Genji or Tracer or something in someone's gallery, just because that's probably what they're playing and it's fun and they want to do something cool. But then the rest of it is like original concept art for other video games that they've been employed to do, or if they're a student that does concept art and things like that.
Well, I think that's the difference. I have a feeling that a lot of the people who are on ArtStation, or at least on the front page of it, I feel like a lot of them must be professionals.
Yes, and you can actually filter, like when you're searching for things on ArtStations, like specific topics, you can say, show me pro members first, So those would be people that are paying for ArtStation for its portfolio uses. So likely they're professional artists if they're doing that, or very close to being that. I do find that there's a lot more professionals on ArtStation because I see a lot of concept art from video games that are like big published things like WildStar and Warcraft and Hearthstone, things like that. Because especially because Hearthstone gets a lot of guest painters. Like they're freelancers. They're not people that are full-time employed at Blizzard. For new cards, they often reach out to different concept painters and say like, hey, we need, kobolds with candles or something. And they come up with a bunch of different unique stuff, which is really cool. I don't notice, I used to see a lot of Blizzard fan art around, and I don't see as much of it anymore. I see more anime fan art and more Overwatch stuff. Yeah. It's something that a good example of using fan art to your advantage, and probably unintentionally. Piper Thibodeau's story, when she was doing her daily paintings, she was well a ream of dailies before she decided to take on redesigning Pokemon. So she was doing fan art of Pokemon, but she was also trying to not just draw them as they were, but also kind of put her own on DeviantArt. Really gave her a giant foothold of following. So then when she stopped and she just continued on to do her own thing, she had a built-in fan base that then just liked her work for her work as opposed to just being a fan of Pokemon.
Right. That makes sense. Wow. I'm trying to get over here to the Twitter where these questions are.
My issue with fan art, and I'm going to pose this to Phil, is I don't do much of it because I'm not so big of a fan of things. Like, it would make sense for me to start doing Overwatch characters. They look like they're fun to draw, but I've never played a minute of Overwatch, so I kind of feel like a hack if I do that. Like, so Phil, if you want to do fan art, is it just because the character looks cool, or is it because you've seen the movie or played the game and you have some sort of connection to it?
Most of the time when I do fan art, it's because I'm just stoked about something. Like, I saw Logan last year. I came home and I drew X-23 right away just because I was so stoked about that character, I think I did some Wonder Woman fan art when that trailer came out and she looked badass in her armor and all that. And it was just like, there's a cool visual that's pretty inspiring. I like to go on Instagram, like when something like Daredevil, new Daredevil season comes out and people are doing fan art of Daredevil and putting their stuff out there whenever there's a new movie. And I think some of it is because it's trendy, but I think a lot of the people doing it they're just fans who want to put their stamp on something that they're really jazzed about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That makes sense.
I'm going to do a PSA right now and ask everybody, if you are doing fan art of the new, I'm going to say Game of Thrones season, or maybe, latest series or something that's released on Netflix, and you've binged and you've watched all 13 episodes in a day, and then you start doing fan art, just be a little sensitive to the people out there that have not watched the series. Because I was spoiled. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this on this show before. I certainly got into it on the Citadel Cafe. But spoiler alert on the last season of Game of Thrones.
Right.
All right. Everybody got their earplugs out. One of the dragons dies. And
What?
I found out about that in a piece of fan art in my email. Now, I'm smart enough to stay off of social media the day after Game of Thrones comes out until I see it, because ultimately you end up getting spoiled and you get mad. But I have to check my email, and email is never any place that I get spoiled. Well, someone on ArtStation painted a picture of this blonde girl in a white dress with with a big dragon and blood everywhere. And I knew from the way that it was painted that it was from Game of Thrones. Now, it wasn't an exact scene depiction. It was their interpretation of it. But I was like, the show hasn't been out for 8 hours.
Right.
And this was painted and put on the internet. And it's like, dude, just take a breath.
Give me 5 minutes to consume before you start regurgitating.
Yeah, it was the same thing when The Last Jedi came out. I was
going to say,
I was completely internet dark. I didn't look at any art sites. I didn't do anything because I was so worried about getting spoiled.
That is so funny. I've never thought about fan art as a way to spoil something, but I guess it's true. Lots of times I do a lot of those self-imposed get off the internet if I'm about to go see something this big. So yeah, you won't hear much from me the week before certain things. Like, I don't know why I'm so excited about Solo, and I know some people are complaining, and it's always people complain. What am I even worried about? I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm kind of excited about Solo, and so I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know nothing. Matter of fact, the trailer is actually too long for me. I'm like, no, you're giving me too much. I don't want to hear nothing. La 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 la. All right. So on Twitter a few days ago, I baited my followers with the question, "What are your thoughts on fan art, morally, ethically, legally?" And Rob D says, these are a few of the answers I got back. Completely fine with fan art. It's usually an expression of one's enjoyment of something. And if they do it just for fun for themselves, it's fine. So kind of how we describe fan art. However, I'm not sure it's okay to sell something without permission based on another person's IP. That happens a lot at cons and stuff. It's like, here's my interpretation of the character done, doing things that I do.
Oh, it's rampant.
Right. And I have seen some people do a little bit better, because what they do is they take their characters and they may put an element, especially with like superheroes, they may put an element of the superhero onto their character to show that their character loves that superhero, and that superhero exists, in a fan's way in that universe. And
yeah, so, I've done that in some of my comic strips when the characters are lined up to go see the Avengers movie, then each character is dressed up as one of the superheroes.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's fine, because that's a nod and everything else. But yeah, just flat out trying to draw something that could be confused, even though we're usually not. Usually when it gets to that point, the artist is usually young, inexperienced, and is just trying to express themselves. I guess the big point behind IP protection is to make sure there's no confusion between the real creators and people knocking it off, because it can damage your property, and that's the real reason behind having protecting IPs. Yeah.
A really good example at one of the HalCons here, HalCon being the Halifax Sci-Fi Fantasy Convention. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but there's always fan art. There's always people doing fan art. I do fan art. I try to put my own spin on it, but I do fan art. But somebody was getting a lot of flack, and I don't believe they were asked to leave the convention, but they were certainly never invited back. I've not seen them back. And what it was a bunch of posters. They were 20 by 30 posters. It was all artwork. Now, it was something that this person had drawn. And it was Batman, Superman, Magneto, like all that kind of stuff. But it was he was copying images and pages from comic books. Like, he wasn't photocopying them. He was drawing them.
Right.
But you looked at it and you go, that's Jim Lee's Batman.
Right.
But it's not quite Jim Lee's Batman, because obviously it's not, you can tell that it's somebody else drew it, but it's like the exact same places where the spot blacks were, and the way that the cross hatching was, and the pose and everything is like verbatim. And so everybody was like, this guy is just pilfering, the hard work from other people. And yes, he can draw, but he's not taking the time to draw anything new. But, just down the aisle from him is somebody that's probably drawing My Little Ponies, and everybody's fine with it because that person is doing their own thing.
Right.
It's not, you're not looking at, it's a funny idea. You're not looking at Jim Lee's My Little Pony, right?
I would read that book.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So much cross-hatching. Oh my God.
Well, I think there's a difference between an artist who, like what you do, Joel, when you make chibi characters, you sell prints. It's sort of a smaller market. It's at a con where basically the big publishers kind of look the other way on that. They know that artists are it's sort of promoting their characters and this and that. And setting up a booth or setting up an online store where you're selling essentially knockoff merchandise. You're selling posters. I see these T-shirt companies that basically just make knockoff Doctor Who shirts all day. That people make, and it undercuts the actual license holder of that stuff. So it is
Yeah.
it is actually damaging somebody's brand and damaging somebody's business in doing that.
Yeah,
And that's
I think a
that's
lot
where
of
it
times.
crosses the line between fan art and like borderline piracy, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, and if you're doing something like licensing, gets into a whole other kind of can of worms, because if you're making something like a coffee mug, which with images on it,
Mhm.
then that's a lot different than just selling a print of your artwork. Because
Right.
for whatever reason, the when I start to see cease and desists or hear about that kind of stuff, it's usually when people venture into merchandise.
Right.
Because that's a fuzzy line of like, well, yeah, okay, it's only a coffee cup, but how long is it before people decide to just put it on any kind of merchandise that may or may not be,
Right.
the way that brand, like for example, bumper stickers, that's a piece of merchandise. Well, what if that person is putting is decided, well, I like Spider-Man, but I'm also a white supremacist. So they make a white supremacist Spider-Man bumper sticker. Well, if there's precedent laid down ahead of time and Marvel hasn't squashed all bumper stickers, then it just gets really, really hairy, right? But I feel like you're right, Phil, with fan art in terms of like it's also I don't remember what podcast I was listening to, but somebody had interviewed someone that worked at Marvel, and they had said like, we don't really come on the individual creators because it just does nothing but it's bad PR for Marvel. And it's free advertising. Like you're looking, the story that this particular person had said was like, he's standing at the table, he's looking at a lineup of 45 people that are here to talk to this artist who's just an individual independent creator and possibly buy some of his Spider-Man art or something like that. But he's like, this is 45 people that are lined up to possibly buy an image of a character that Marvel owns. Like that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like that's, it's not bad. Right. So it's a good way to, I think, treat it. It's like once people start, if you start crossing into merchandising and damaging, IP, then they say, no, you can't do that. But if you're just kind of being a fan who happens to be an artist, and I think that would be,
I think most people who do fan art do it for the reason that Phil said. We're just jazzed about something. We just saw or participated in something that we thought was awesome, and so we're just expressing that love.
Mm-hmm.
But I have noticed that in the cons, there's such a temptation to try to, you want to make some kind of money, you want to get some kind of attention. And when you realize that most people aren't there to look for new stuff, the only place you can go is with the stuff that already exists. And I imagine that some people, it must be easy to get carried away and be like, well, okay, I actually sold a few of these prints. I wonder if I could make more by doing this thing over here. And I think they just get so caught up in the money side of it that they kind of forget to examine the morality of it the way the four of us might.
Yeah, there's a guy at last year's HawkCon that had, or no, 2 years ago, that had an entire booth of fan art, and they were 18 by 20 long prints. He was flying himself all over the country at different conventions and was making money doing it, and it was all like video game characters, like everybody from Overwatch to WoW characters, all that kind of stuff. And it was not a copy of the stuff that was already out there. It was his own posing and creation pinup version of these characters, but it was totally just completely. I'm just what I'm looking for. It was his sole backbone. He did. I don't recall there being any original content.
Really?
Okay.
That's wild. How do you get away with that?
I have no idea, because I think he had a book too. I'm pretty sure my friend Mike bought his book.
That's like you said earlier, merchandising changes everything because basically a coffee mug has no artistic value by itself. It's a generic coffee mug, of course. I'm not talking about some artistic coffee mug that you're making on Etsy or whatever. I'm talking about a plain white coffee mug that anybody can get 1 million of them from China. Has practically no value at all until you put some kind of artwork on it. And at that time, you're literally increasing the value of one product by using the marketing of on somebody else's to do that. Whereas a fan art on a piece of paper, it feels a little different. It feels like, it feels like you're getting what you're getting. You understand that it was created by another artist. It seems like it's a little bit clearer transaction, right?
And from a business standpoint too, it feels like less of a capital investment.
Right.
Right. I mean, you can do print on demand. Even if you go to a printer, like a 4-color press printer, and you get 100 of each print, like that's still not a big investment. Whereas when you do coffee mugs and stuff like that, there tends to be like a bigger business sort of involvement. There's a bigger commitment,
Right.
there.
I agree.
I think the other thing too that came up in the panel that I did a few years ago about fan art was parody and creative license. Like if you're doing something unique and funny with the characters, and that also, no matter what that is, you can generally get away with it. Like if you're making fun of Star Wars or whatever you're doing, then that's usually
because
free reign.
The selling point is not the creation of the character. The selling point is your humorous take on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But at what point does that? Oh, go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that's Mad Magazine's bread and butter.
Yeah. True story.
That's Mad Magazine. That works. But what about all those? To go back to Joel's bumper sticker analogy, what about all those stickers of like Calvin pissing on things?
Yeah,
and
he didn't.
Watterson
like that.
has spent a lifetime chasing down these nickel and dime printers who make these things. Like that's.
I like to think
technically it's parody, but it really flies in the face of what Calvin and Hobbes is. I wouldn't call that fan art. You know what I mean? Like
no.
Yeah. I like to think that's why Watterson retired, so that he could pursue those people full time.
He's just full time, like,
just on the phone every day.
And one specific thing to note about that is that it's not redrawn. Like it's a clip from one of the Watterson comics that they've just it's his brushstrokes, right?
Yeah.
Like it's unmistakably his. When people see it, you're like, oh, that's Calvin. Like it's not a it's very different when you see someone that tries to draw Calvin, because no one can outside of Watterson, and you immediately know it's a knockoff, right? Like who is this clown? Why are they doing that?
But you've touched on something in my head where now I'm thinking, all right, well, part of the reason why we might not participate too deeply in getting involved in these fan art things and selling stuff is because I don't know about you guys, but there's always part of me that feels a little bit scummy if I'm selling something that someone else really came up for the idea for. It's like that's not really my success.
Right.
That comes to me with I really like the look of the Overwatch characters, and I'm probably going to attempt at some fan art at some point, but I don't play the game, so I don't feel justified. I'm doing it purely because it's popular and will get some attention. It's I think someone mentioned in the chat room about covering a song. If you're an up and coming musician and you want to do your own version of a popular song. Like, are you doing it because you really like that song, or are you looking at the market like this song has been number one for like 6 weeks? I'm going to do my version of it because it'll just really help my YouTube channel. It's a tough hair to split, because I'm a fan of the Overwatch art, which I can be. Like that doesn't make me not a fan. But if someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, I really like your Genji print," and then they start talking to me about like Genji's abilities in the game, I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to keep up with the conversation. I'm going to be instantly. I'm going to be.
The way it looks.
I'm going to look like a hack immediately, right? So,
come on, Joel. Nerds never come up and challenge how much you know about anything.
yeah. No, whereas I can draw Star Wars stuff and feel very like I can say I am a fan of Star Wars. But is anybody here feeling like they're less of an intense fan compared to when they were younger?
Yeah, and the reason the reason why I think that is several things. First, I don't have the time to invest in the many flourishing IPs, because when we were growing up, when Star Wars came out, our generation at that time didn't really have a whole lot that we could call our own, but it's totally different now. We have a lot of things that we can call our own, maybe almost too much, because even Marvel Comics, while it was popular within our circles growing up as nerds, it wasn't mainstream popular, you know? So it's hard to be a super fanboy on things that seem to have migrated to the mainstream, maybe. And maybe it's just because we don't know what some of these people are fanboying hard about. Finding their thing, you know?
Well, and there's so much of it now, too.
So much.
You can't be an intense fan when Marvel is putting out like 4 movies a year.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like you get exhausted trying to be really into everything. And I mean, you also hit it, Brian, like we're adults now, and it's, you know, I have other things to, you know, I'm a fan of my kids and my mortgage at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's, you know, like I have other things sort of vying for my attention. And it's sort of like, all right, when I get a breather, I'm going to get stoked about a new Star Wars movie. But
absolutely.
But I have to get up and go to work right now, you know,
right.
These kind of things. So
yeah, if you guys had the time and to narrow it down to maybe say art related, is there anything that you are a fan of currently where you would be, you know, like kind of nervous to talk to that creator at a con, or you'd be really excited to see a live concert from or a live, you know, talk with that person or something?
Right. That's a good trick. That's a good question.
I have kind of a story on that line. I do a show on Blazing Caribou Network with Carrie McGinnis. Sorry, she got married.
Hey, she was just in the chat room, wasn't she?
Carrie's in the chat tonight, and Imran Javed, and it's called Sketching Comedy, and it's a YouTube show, and we talk about an artist every week, and Imran and I draw live, you know, something to do with that artist. So
right.
we were talking about David Peterson of Mouse Guard. Carrie's husband's a big fan, has some original artwork and stuff. So we're talking about him, and we had tagged him in the Twitter post when we're like, oh, we're going live. And he ends up coming into our chat, and we bring him on the show.
Oh,
so
nice.
Now I'm live drawing David Peterson's character in front of David Peterson. and it is just like, oh man, I want to just shut my camera off right now. Like he was really cool. He was really gracious and really cool to spend a lot of time with us and hang out and talk about his characters and stuff. But if you ever want to have something really nerve-wracking, go do some fan art in front of the guy who made the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is crazy. No, I don't even want to think about it. It makes me want to sweat.
It is. It was really
like a comedian doing an impersonation of a celebrity and for that celebrity.
Right. Oh, I always hate those when they do those on SNL. Sometimes they'll have one of the comedians there and they'll be doing it in front of the actor. Oh, uncomfortable
like Mark Wahlberg
me.
shows up. Yeah.
Yeah. Say it just kills me. Can't do it. Oh man. So all right. So we got to wrap up here. Unfortunately, I don't feel like we got to hit all the points we wanted to discuss, but that's okay. Maybe we'll have part 2 of fan art. Part 2 of fan art discussion. I've had a really good time. If you have any feedback you want to give us, please join next week on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Brian Dunaway, or send us an email. It's guys@Comics Coast to Coast. We're glad to read that. Hit me up on Twitter if you like. I didn't get to read all of my Twitter posts, but if you go on to my Twitter feed, Twitter/the Brian Dunaway, and look for the thread where I baited my followers to give me a little more information on what they thought about fan art. Some interesting discussions there. Phil, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. It was a blast. Is there any final places you want to send people to?
It was a blast. Thank you for having me very much. I really appreciate it, guys. PhilRood.com. You can get me on all the social media from there. And probably the best, if you're looking for a social media to follow me on, Instagram is probably where I'm trying to send most people to right now.
That's the stuff. I'm going to go grab that free PDF, by the way. The cats are
yes,
jerks.
do it.
I'm going to grab that.
Go to my website, and I've got links to digital stuff you can buy, original art you can buy, and I have, when I make something free like that, I just put a button up there so you can go and grab it.
That's great. Look at my buttons. Touch my buttons. Press the shiny red button. Joel Duggan of Forge Publishing.
That is me. You can go to forgepublishing.com and check out Piper Thibodeau's book, Daily Paintings. You can also go to joelduggan.com, which will just connect you to any social media that you need, as well. Also taking commissions. I finished my list for January, so if you're looking to get some new artwork done, then just get in touch via the website. And maybe, just maybe, you should keep an eye on starcrossedonline.com.
What? Don't tease me like that. It's not fair.
I said that just to get the falsetto out of Brian, by the way.
Right.
That was pure...
It's the only way I know how to get there. I've seen too much stuff in my lifetime. Matthew Ducharme.
Yes, people can find my work on YouTube. Just do a search for Matt the Wad or my full name, Matthew Ducharme.
Excellent. You can follow everything we do on twitter.com/comicsc2c. What else? Oh, hey, if you'd like to support the show, that would be great. We'd love it. Head on over to patreon.com/comicsc2c, right? I think that's right. That's it. Patreon.com/comicsc2c. That's it. We'll see you guys next week.
Show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Thanks, guys. Had fun. Thanks, Wicked Kid. Thanks, Tom DeGosa. Plays Caribou Studios. Wicked Kid and Joel Duggan. Thanks, Joel.